And welcome everybody to tonight's edition of Rewind a Raw. My name is Wai Ting. I'll be steering the ship. We are giving John the evening off as he battles a bit of a mild cold. He's been very busy this weekend, of course. Yesterday, he just released a Impact Slammiversary review on the Post Wrestling Cafe. This afternoon, he did a post daily news update with Stephen Bell, author of Dynamite, Davey and Dynamite, the explosive lives of the British Bulldogs. And he will be back with me tomorrow for Ask Away. So we're giving him the evening off. But joining me on very short notice here, thank you so much for being here, Kate from
My
Montreal.
absolute pleasure. John, get well soon.
It's not a task that I have to be very considerate when I decide to ask. Well, first of all, who is willing to take on the task of watching this show for 3 hours to take notes and then joining me afterwards? And also who has been keeping up? And thankfully, UK from Montreal, not only do you fulfill both of those qualities, you're also fantastic on air. So thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have to say this was a bit different because I think a lot of times with Raw, I'll kind of have it on in the background and sort of go in and out. This is like I was obviously making notes and paying very close attention. So it was well, we'll get to it, but it was a slightly different experience.
I'm very curious to know, as somebody who has done it for a long time, what it was like for you, what was different about it. So we will get into that. It is a bit of a 3-hour show, so maybe we should just get right into it, everybody.
Absolutely.
So this is WWE Raw coming to us from the University of Nebraska, and to start off the show, we have a graphic in memory of Tim White, of course, the former WWE referee whose death was announced on Sunday at the age of 68. And this was about what we all we got for Tim White here, and of course we send our condolences. Bianca Belair starts the show off. She says she was looking forward to defending against Rhea Ripley at Money in the Bank, but she won't be medically cleared in time to compete. So a bit of news. I believe Sean Ross Sapp had this just slightly before Raw went on the air, but Rhea Ripley not medically cleared to compete. And I don't believe it's been explicitly stated what injury she received.
Yeah,
But
I didn't see anything. Like I didn't even see that it was an injury as
we
opposed to a sickness. We don't need to mention which one, and it goes around a lot. But it was very much like just she was out of the match, and then Bianca, the way she put it, she's not medically cleared, which is
we do know that like on June 6th, she had that number one contenders match, of course, in which she somehow injured her teeth that required some dental surgery. So it could be some remnants of that, that we're not completely aware of. But nonetheless, she has not wrestled since that June 6th match. So she won't be available for Money in the Bank. So then Belair names some challengers for a new number one contenders fatal 5-way that's about to take place. Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Carmella, Asuka, and Becky Lynch. And we have the procession of people that are about to wrestle. As Becky Lynch comes out, she says she's the only deserving challenger. She still hasn't received her WrestleMania rematch, and she had her match won at Hell in a Cell. Then Asuka comes out. She starts making fun of Becky crying, calls her big time baby. Liv Morgan says she's in a great mood because she's already in the Money in the Bank, but she's willing to trade in that opportunity for a chance to face Belair one more time. One-on-one, I should say. Carmella then comes out and she says she wants Liv kicked out of the match because she's not a former champion like the rest of them. She says Liv is only here because she's riding on Alexa's coattails. And out comes Alexa finally, who says, Carmella, you shouldn't be talking because last time you won your briefcase, you needed that guy with a certain chin, and that Carmella has never been successful on her own. And this sets up our fatal 5-way match. What do you think about this opening segment and the decision to have these 5?
I found the promos very, very stiff, generally speaking. And it's an ongoing problem with WWE promos. I thought that, interestingly, Carmella's point is well taken. The others are all champions. Liv is not and has lost every time she's had a championship opportunity. So that's, she's not entirely wrong there. The big thing for me was like, oh my God, they finally let Alexa speak. She hasn't spoken since she got back, and that was always her strength. I thought we got to see a bit of that. I didn't think she was back quite at the level where she was, but clearly the points leveled at Carmella were dead on the money. Um, and with her coming out that way, I actually thought they were going to give it to her because she's certainly, I think, the freshest matchup. I don't think she and Bianca have ever had a match, and I yeah, I mean, it fell flat for me as a segment. Oh, one thing that I did hear this from the main event tapings beforehand. Apparently, a woman you might think would be in this, she's lost to Bianca already, was Doudrop, who apparently won the 24/7 title. So that's
Oh,
where she
okay.
is now. Yeah, I
Okay,
saw
interesting.
that. Yeah, I saw that just
Well,
going
who
into
needs
Raw.
a world championship when you've already won the 24/7 championship, right? So
Yeah, and I think
interesting.
she's about 0-20 with Bianca. So
Got it. So we have our fatal five-way match here where Becky immediately goes after Asuka, which leaves the other three in the ring. Alexa and Liv have a nice little sequence as friendly rivals with these long rolling cradles. I thought these two, did a really good job here. Although definitely the crowd seemed a bit tepid for this portion as well as other parts of this match. Everybody starts to pair up in the ring, some good action, a lot of it focused on Liv. Carmella does the Trish Stratus handstand Rana to Becky, who lands roughly onto Liv Morgan below. That gets a 2 count. The Asuka lock is delivered to Carmella, but it's broken up by Alexa Bliss. Becky hits the manhandle slam on Asuka, but Alexa breaks it with a twisted Bliss off the top. We get This Is Awesome chance, and the finish comes with a twisted Bliss to Liv, but she blocks with the knees and ends up running right into Carmella's super kick. So Carmella gets the win here and goes on to face Bianca Belair for the title at the Money in the Bank match. What do you think of the match, Kate?
Thought it was a little rough in places. I agree. I thought that the Liv and Alexa sequences were very good. I thought that again, I kind of thought they'd give it to Alexa. Uh, I also thought that having Becky and Asuka in this match was a little weird, considering that they were at Hell in a Cell. They were the challengers. They should kind of go to the back of the line. Like I thought it would have been fine with a smaller group. Um, yeah, Carmella winning. I mean, you look at the women who were in that match, and very clearly one of these things is not like the others. I think that she has improved in ring. She is not near at the level of the women she was in there with.
I really enjoyed the match. For me, it reminded me a lot of the earlier SmackDown matches after the brand split with, much of this crew, including Becky, Alexa, and
Mhm.
Carmella, where they would often do these multi-person matches. And I think they were often like great ways of showcasing the talent is in that, wouldn't necessarily require any single one of them to like, hold people's attentions for like 10 minutes. While at the same time, I think mixing up the star power pretty decently well. It was very fast paced, and like many WWE multi-man matches, very easy to follow and well organized. I think they do a great job of like, making sure that these matches aren't too cluttered or too messy. Definitely some spots could have been a bit tighter. There are moments like, where Alexa Bliss, who's still doing the Sister Abigail as her finish, she's got the move. In addition to the Twisted Bliss, she's holding on to the move and just felt like she was waiting a little bit too long for Becky to come in to break it up, for instance. But overall, I enjoyed the match. I see Carmella being chosen here as basically picking the person who is least important to the Money in the Bank match to be in. Um,
Mhm.
was she even like actually if she was even announced, she wasn't in the
No,
match yet. Never mind.
no.
No, but everybody else here is about to be, in Alexa Bliss,
Yeah.
or at least, is vying for a spot. Um, I think I think Liv is set for a big spot in the Money in the Bank, and perhaps
Mhm.
Alexa Bliss as well. Part of the reason why I hope that her personality has been so understated and so kind of lacking is that I hope that they're actually setting something up for her, whether it be a turn on Liv or something like that. And for that reason, I feel like both of them have pretty integral spots in the Money in the Bank match. Um, Becky and Oscar was a bit interesting because, like, coming off of this show, I have no idea what they're going to do with Becky. Spoiler alert, everybody. Oscar won the main event, so she'll be in the Money in the Bank. But yeah, I mean, I guess you can't do Becky versus Belair if that's something that they're holding off on. So I guess that
No,
leaves
and they should
Carmella.
hold off on it. That's your SummerSlam match. That's which will be the anniversary of Becky coming back and the sort of the 26-second disaster. Like that should be the SummerSlam match.
So I guess that leaves Carmella, because who else do you have, right? Dewdrop, I mean,
Yeah,
she's gotten beaten like millions of
Nikki.
times, and Nikki, I suppose, but at that point, it's like in terms of star power, you're not really,
Yeah.
that off from Carmella. So
No, no. I think you're dealing with a technically better wrestler, so it would make me a little happier in that regard. But no, certainly, I guess that's the thing. Like either way, whatever you were going to get, I mean, Rhea was the one that you were building up. Anything else was going to be a very cold match, which makes me wonder. Maybe just put another match in there. Like you
instead of a
don't
title
have to have
defense.
her. Yeah, you don't have to have her defend the title. Um, you can work around that.
So Becky Lynch is in the back. She's complaining to Adam Pearce about losing yet again. And Pearce reminds Becky that originally, before this match was made, the Fatal 5-Way, she was scheduled to face Asuka. And then Pearce makes that match official again. So that was the match this afternoon that they were promoting. I mean, really promoting all week,
Mhm,
Asuka versus Becky
mhm.
Lynch. So it does make me wonder if when they exactly found out about Rhea Ripley, because I think for
Mhm.
the structure of the show would have made a whole lot more sense to promote that 5-way instead of, announcing that you're going to do Becky versus Asuka before
Yeah.
doing all of this. So this was kind of their way of handling the awkward structure of the show, I suppose. And then our next segment, speaking of unannounced, Vince McMahon shows up here. Uh, he gets that same babyface pop as we saw last weekend, on Friday, I should say. And Nebraska here is bowing to him. People are clapping to him, all in the midst of a sexual misconduct investigation, of course. He comes out to say, tonight is the 1517th edition of Monday Night Raw, which continues to make this the longest running episodic show, whatever bullshit that they say in history. He says, thank you. He says 20 of Raw's 30 years have been dominated by the greatest WWE superstar of all time, who returns next week. And that is, of course, John Cena. And that's all Vince is here to say. So
Mhm. Slightly
he's like,
longer than what he said on Friday.
yeah, and he trips up slightly as he exits the ring as well. But yeah, what do you think of these a second Vince McMahon appearance in as many days?
I'm looking at my notes, and what I have written here is, "Oh Christ." Um, it was unexpected. I'll give them that. After the appearance on Friday, when the reaction to it, I think, other than in the stadium, I think was very good. It was a bit mixed, but it was generally very good. Um, I think it was very positive tonight, but it was a real risk putting him out there. He is a divisive figure. There is this story that is circulating right now. I guess this is their attempt to kind of control their narrative. Um, and again, he came out and really said nothing. He came out and announced something that was already announced, that we knew was happening next week, and he, uh, I guess what the like 1570, like whatever it was, the Krusty the Clown 29th anniversary spectacular or whatever it was. It was like a very random. I guess he knew what number it was. So okay, it's their
Yeah,
choice.
much like on Friday, there was no real purpose to the appearance, but for Vince to show his face. And that's what
Mhm,
I find so fascinating is the strategy behind it. Why he has decided that it is so important for him to, in the midst of this controversy that is very public, why it's important for him to appear on his TV screen, not once now, but twice. And who
mhm.
knows how many more times this could be a weekly occurrence at this point, right?
Yeah.
But he comes out here and it's really, again, no mistake about the type of character he's being portrayed. I mean, please remember, everybody, last time we saw Vince, I mean, he's doing the whole thing with Theory. He's got the whole thing with Austin. He's more of a nefarious sort of like, he's Mr. McMahon. He's like, he's
Mhm.
teaching Theory how to attack opponents from behind and all that shit. And then here he comes out, just like he did on Friday, as almost your lovable grandfather, taking the same advice that he's giving people like Ronda Rousey and Raquel, smiling, thanking the audience, from their hometowns. And I mean, it's been discussed, I think, a whole lot over the weekend about what some of this might be. Some thinking that it's a way to show the public and his stockholders that he is not riled by what's going on, that he's still very much, despite not being entitled the chairman and CEO, he's still very much the face of this business, and that he still maintains a level of control, and that he's beloved by everybody despite everything, right? This one, we can say, wasn't even a ratings grab because they did not announce it beforehand. It just maybe more felt like a public show of strength in the face of controversy. Do you think we continue to see this?
Well, he's certainly going to have more time on his hands. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him more. I do think that these appearances will wear thin fairly quickly. I'll be curious to see what they announce him as the next time he comes out. Because
but that's the thing, Kate. I don't think they would mind if these types of things were thin, because I feel like that's almost the point, is to like not make it seem like it's a big deal, and that him coming out is a regular occurrence, and that life is normal, so to speak.
But I think it helps also if you can show that the people are into this. It does lend some credence to the idea that things are going to be fine. He's still the man. People want to see him there. He's going to be there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it more. I don't think we're going to be seeing it like every Monday and Friday, but I guess there is the opportunity for him to go back to the story with Theory a bit. He was involved with that, so we shall see, or possibly with the story with Pat McAfee.
Of course, on the Vince front, we will probably talk about this a little bit more tomorrow. But he did settle his lawsuit with Oliver Luck, with his wrongful termination from the XFL. So that's at least one thing off his plate. But I'm sure several dollars less from his wallet as well. So
it's never a super good sign when a ruling that goes against you is followed immediately by a settlement. It usually doesn't mean it went well for you.
Up next, we've got Riddle, who comes up with a brand new shirt that says "Hey Randy" on it. Riddle says he let everybody down when he lost to Roman on Friday, but most importantly, he felt like he let Randy down. I'm starting to feel like all of this Randy obsession could be just their way of justifying Randy's turn on him whenever he comes back. I mean, it is at the point now where Riddle is bringing up Randy at every opportunity, to the point of obnoxiousness and creepiness, almost a little. And it's exactly the type of thing that is setting up, could potentially set up Orton for an RKO.
And I think they are laying it on pretty thick now. Like I hit the point, and I've liked what they've done with these two. I did kind of hit the point in the last week or so where it's like, okay, this is getting a bit much. It now seems kind of insincere, or just methinks the lad doth protest too much. So we'll see what happens. But I don't know if I see the point to it, unless Orton's injury is a lot less serious than we've been led to believe, because I think if he really is not coming back for months, then constantly teasing him like this is something that's going to start losing its impact.
That's my question, because I think this would be great build if we were headed towards Riddle versus Orton at SummerSlam. But if the suggestions are true about like the severity of a surgery, I mean, he could be out for the rest of the year. And can Riddle keep this up? Or can they keep this up for Riddle with these constant Randy mentions all the way until, I don't know, even January?
Like the Rumble. It's it seems. I doubt. I very much doubt they can keep the momentum that long.
Well, in the meantime, it seems like we at least have an idea of who his SummerSlam opponent might be, because Riddle says even though he let Randy down, he could still win Money in the Bank, and specifically calls out one of the qualifiers in in Seth Rollins for attacking his buddy Cody Rhodes. So who'd have thunk it? Everybody is Cody Rhodes' best friend suddenly. So Riddle wants revenge for Cody as well, but he also wants to qualify for Money in the Bank. But out come MVP and Omos, who ask if Riddle has been smoking with rappers because only they have the type of stash that can make him think he has a chance to beat Omos in their qualifying match tonight. MVP says Riddle will get high when Omos chokeslams him. And Riddle responds by saying, I'll get high when I get my hand raised tonight. Can we criminalize weed again? Just to stop?
I know it's okay. Yeah, like I would accept some legal sanctions if it meant that I did not have to get these jokes every. It's like, we get it. You've discovered pot exists. Ha ha. Move on.
This is certainly it's one of the negative side effects of the legalization of cannabis that I don't think anybody warned us about. Shit, like terrible, like dated shit, like references that companies like the WWE continue to think are edgy. And I don't know, maybe, I mean, listen, Riddle is a very popular character right now. I don't think he needs this sort of stuff to make him popular, but it got cheered tonight, so maybe what do I know?
Mm-hmm.
Riddle versus Omos for a spot in the Money in the Bank. Riddle has his ribs taped up from Friday, and so Omos targets it. He delivers a long bear hug, which elbows him in the kidneys and then back to the bear hug. Riddle gets his brief comeback. He signals for the RKO, which Omos powers out, hits a choke slam. He got him high, and Omos won. So big win for Omos, but Riddle is somewhat protected with the injury, and realistically, he is the guy who takes a lot of pinfalls, back in the tag team anyway. So I guess not that big of an upset.
Well, I think that if there's anything we've learned in the last few months, it's that Riddle is an amazing seller. Like, he's going to make his opponent look good all the time, and that was very much true here. I thought this was one of the better Omos matches. I haven't been overly fond of any of the ones with Bobby Lashley. I thought that Riddle made him look really good here, and the combination of the injury and the power moves that Omos is able to do, it worked. And yeah, I don't feel like Riddle is diminished by this.
There's no doubt that Omos is still an incredibly limited talent, but I think they have enough tools in him for somebody like a Riddle to be able to drag out a good performance out of him. Omos has a few solid moves. He's become, I think, good at making mean faces, and I think he has enough intensity about him to make these types of matches successful. So, how do you think he'll do in the Money in the Bank?
I don't think he's going to win, but I think he is going to get a very good showing. He will. The year that Braun Strowman won, like, that was very clear they were going to they were basically going with him, but he had some amazing spots leading up to the win. I think Omos is going to have a few spots like that. I don't think he will win, but who knows? They're a little thin on people right now, but yeah, I think that he's going to get some of the most memorable spots of the night.
I'm certainly curious to see like how they portray him, what they do to tease him. He is more limited than somebody like a Braun Strowman, but can the rest of the people in that match, or can they come up with something just unique, for a man of his size? So we shall see. So with Riddle laid out, by the way, do you have any like candidates for who you think might win, at least on the men's side of things? And is Omos one of those candidates?
No. I don't think so. I think that they know enough of his limitations to know that he's not ready to be doing a match with Roman Reigns, and particularly if you look at Roman's style. Well, not that it's a cash in. It's not necessarily a match, but I don't think that there's any appetite for that match. My instinct is Seth Rollins, actually. I think they might have him win again. I hope that they recognize at the Royal Rumble that match was, to me, the far and away the best thing on that show, and that there is, the audience was hot for that match. However you want to play it, whoever you want to have doing the heel versus the baby face, I think they have good chemistry, and that could be worth revisiting.
Because Mania this year, it's still definitely up in the air because we don't know Dwayne Johnson's status. But I mean, it's a long time away, so I guess they can do even a mini Rollins run at some point in there. But just to remind everybody, thus far, we have Seth Rollins, Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, Omos, Shinsuke, and either Shinsuke Nakamura or Sami Zayn will have already or will qualify for the match. And then I think 3 more people to be named later. So those are the choices so far.
They could also go with Sammy, which is they have a bit of a story there with him
That's
and the
hard
bloodline.
to. That's honestly hard
Yeah,
for
I
me
know.
to
I don't
qualify.
see it. I think they could. I think it's a good storyline, and it would certainly. Sammy's a great promo. I don't see them going that far with him. I think they have him slotted exactly where they want him, and he's not moving anywhere.
Or it could just be the simple direction of Drew winning and then, saying right there, I want that match at the castle. So we shall see. So with Riddle laid out here, out comes Rollins, who comes in and attacks him. He says that he is the only one who can beat Roman Reigns, as he demonstrated, or at least was about to demonstrate at the Rumble here. He says he's going to win the Money in the Bank contract so he can face him again. Riddle tries to sneak attack, but Rollins catches him with the curb stomp. So Riddle is not in the Money in the Bank match, but seems they are definitely building something for him between Riddle and Seth Rollins, most likely for SummerSlam here. Good. What do you think about that match on paper, SummerSlam?
I like it. I like it very much. I think that you've had 2 guys who are on a run of hot matches. I think the promos will be really interesting. Like, this could go a couple of different ways. And
how many pot references do we get?
Oh my God, please no. Yeah. One thing I will say for Seth Rollins, his spoken promos can be pretty dodgy, but in terms of the body language and the presentation of that character, to me, he has nailed it. Every time he comes out, it's just you get kind of invested. You want to see him get smacked, and yeah, I salute him for that. Whether it's the weird, the carnival costumes, or like just the way he kind of does a little dance on the way to the ring. I find that much more entertaining and much more interesting than when he opens his mouth. It's sort of
Theory is in the ring now, and he still has his podium from last week's pose down with Bobby Lashley. He says that he's better than Lashley has ever been at his stage of his career. Next week is John Cena's 20-year celebration, but his time is up and my time is now. He didn't get to do it last week, so he's going to show off some of his great poses tonight, and he does so. Theory thinks the audience is cheering for his poses until he takes out his phone to take a selfie, and then he sees Bobby Lashley from behind, and they actually get the selfie up on screen immediately. So that was pretty cool technology. Lashley drives him out of the ring. He holds up the U.S. title and says it's coming home with him. So that sets up something for later on in the evening. But yeah, Bobby Lashley really wants the U.S. title for whatever reason. I guess because there's no other belts to go for right now.
This is a weird thing to me. Like, I get that Brock is the much bigger name, but to me, given what he looks like and given how he fights, you have 6 weeks to build up a competitor for Roman Reigns. If you can't take Bobby Lashley and do that in 6 weeks, pack it up. You're like that. There's something terribly wrong, and that is he is the natural guy. He does have the crowd on side right now. I think that feels like a pretty fresh match. If we've seen it before, we haven't seen it in a long ass time. So that like all of the reaction that I was seeing, and again, I recognize Brock is the much bigger name, but overwhelmingly the reaction I saw to that thing on Friday was, oh God, again? And I think they had the opportunity to do something different. So yeah, Bobby's in the US title hunt now. Okay.
We have a brief update on Edge, and the update is that there's no update. He's still selling the injury with no return announced yet, so might be a surprise whenever he comes back. Theory is in the back. He's complaining to Adam Pearce and says that if Bobby wants a U.S. title match at Money in the Bank, he has to win a gauntlet match tonight against 3 opponents of his choosing. So that is later on this evening. The Usos are here. He says Roman, or they say Roman will smash Brock at SummerSlam again, just like they'll smash the Street Profits at Money in the Bank. And that takes us to our singles match, the second chapter in this bout of singles matches between these two teams. Angelo Dawkins versus J Uso. Dawkins hits his silencer for a 2 count. Jay goes for a big dive, but Dawkins catches him, hits a sky high to get the win. A big week for the sky high here. So between this and its anniversary, of course. The Profits and the Usos are now 1-1 in their single series. And we just get some 50-50 balance booking on the way to the title challenge at Money in the Bank. What's your interest in the program thus far?
In the program, it's like flatlining. I don't believe that the Street Profits have a chance of unseating the Usos because the Usos just feel way too important to the overall dynamic right now, particularly with Roman gone. They are carrying the torch for him. And I think if they don't have the tag titles, it becomes very problematic to keep Roman in the conversation on a weekly basis. I thought this was a very good match. I preferred it to the one last week, even though I know, and for reason, Montez Ford is known as the better wrestler, obviously the more spectacular wrestler. I thought Dawkins did really well here, and yeah, I thought it was a good. They gave, obviously they gave a lot to Jay at first. And, he at first it almost looked like it was going to be a squash match, but I got very into it. So the program to me is very cold. I think the wrestling will be excellent.
Agreed. We go to our main event. Elias is in the back. He's on a couch. He's got his beard. He's playing a guitar. And in walks Ezekiel. Zeke talks about Big Bro, dealing with doubters like Owens. Elias says that he's been traveling the world playing shows, but nothing compares to performing in front of the WWE Universe. Elias says he's a changed man after seeing Zeke perform. He's proud to be performing tonight, even in a place like Nebraska. Zeke says it means a lot to him for him to be here. He knows that their mom and dad are watching that the way they used to watch the WWE. Zeke talks about the Money in the Bank. He says he's going to win it, and everybody will want to speak with Zeke. Elias says he wasn't sure a wholesome kid like Zeke had a mean streak, but he's proven him wrong. They say I love you to each other, and they even fist bump one another. Yes, it is. It's every kid in a media class's first cheesy iMovie split screen trick, but it is fitting with the campiness of the gimmick, and I thought it showcased the differences between these two personalities really well. I thought it was a lot of fun. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I'm enjoying this whole thing much more than I feel like I should be for how kind of hokey it is. One thing, want to give props to Ezekiel Elias. I thought that he did a very good job playing two different characters and as you just said, sort of showcasing what makes them distinct. That's not an easy thing to do, and they did come off as two different people, which is one of the reasons why the sort of fake split screen thing worked. I thought it went on a little long. That's the only criticism I'd make.
The next segment is the concert with Elias. So Elias is in there. We get the same setup, the stool, the E minor chord, and everything. He says, thanks, Nebraska, for welcoming him back. He is here to remind them that WWE stands for Walk with Elias, and everybody chants along. Elias is about to dedicate the song to his brother when Kevin Owens interrupts. He says, nobody wants this concert and this charade. He says he is not like these Nebraskans. He's French-Canadian. So he's as smart as it gets. Do you agree, Kate?
The place where Kevin is from, Marieville, Quebec. If you're familiar with it, the idea that he pushes that it is this cultural center is hilarious. Like I'm trying to think of a good parallel to make that people get, but it is a tiny little town that's kind of on the fringes of the suburbs of Montreal. Like it's not even sort of wholesome out in the country, really. Funny thing, my father-in-law used to run the grocery store there, and he remembers them. Like he remembers Kevin and his
Wow.
father coming in. It's like, oh yeah, so yeah.
What's the population of Maryville?
It's like 8. I think it's quite small.
Okay. So Owens talks about the special effects that they have these days, and he says he recently saw a T-Flex fly a helicopter last weekend, and so that video proves nothing. Ezekiel then shows up on the Titantron, and Ezekiel says that he's been telling the truth and that Owens needs to move on from all of this. Elias, still in the ring, breaks into his song. The Zeke freaks have been on fire because KO is a liar. And the crowd starts to sing along to KO is a liar. At this point, Owens breaks Elias's guitar, and Elias hits him with the jumping knee and then smashes a backup guitar over Kevin Owens. And that is the in-ring segment. But it doesn't end there, because in the back, after getting beaten up by Elias, essentially, Owens stumbles through the curtain in the back. He's interviewed by Kevin Patrick, who says, who asks Owens, and Owens says he still doesn't buy it. He says, Elias probably pre-recorded the video. He's probably put on a fake beard. Owens says, I'm going to challenge one of them to a match next week. He doesn't care if it's Elias, Ezekiel, or their younger brother, Elrod. Okay. And at this point, in walks Ezekiel, who accepts the challenge on behalf of the family. And then Owens breaks down at the sight of Ezekiel. He starts holding his head as he starts screaming, Elrod. Kate, they have dragged this 5-minute tops SNL sketch to 3 months. I have no doubt that they could drag it to WrestleMania next season, because they keep evolving it. We keep seeing chapter after chapter. And it also seems like we are actually going to be introduced to a third Elias brother.
Oh yeah, they have to do it now, right? Like they have to give us Elrod. And yeah, I mean Owens is he is so good. And I just love this idea that he's being driven insane, like just right out of his mind by this whole thing. And he's played it extremely well. And yeah, I'm kind of, I'm curious to see where it goes for the Ezekiel Elias character, Elrod too. But I'm really fascinated to see where they go with Owens, who think eventually is going to have a complete breakdown. Yeah, it's, it is the entertainment part of the sports entertainment. I'm sports entertained.
It is so stupid, honestly. But like when you have talented people like do stupid things, it starts to become like really respectable, honestly. Yes, absolutely. Kevin Owens is the man. I think like one of the things that makes it so great is that he points out that like the obvious trickery in all of this, but he's still not sure of it. Like he's like he probably pre-recorded something. He probably put on a beard. It's
and that's
it's so dumb.
He's calling it out, but at the same time, the fact that he's participating in it almost negates the call out. He probably pre-recorded it, but he was kind of interacting. So it's a very clever way that they're building this. And he seems to miss the very, very obvious way that he could settle this once and for all. Find himself a friend, challenge them to a tag match, but he's just not getting there. And obviously he never will. He'll never figure this out.
I mean, I think they could do that and maybe come up with some way of figuring that out. I thought he was gonna, go for Elias's beard tonight, but did not do that. So he's maybe if he was from Montreal instead of Maryville, he would have thought about it. But yeah, later on they did show a graphic. We are going to get a match next week between Kevin Owens and either Ezekiel, Elias, or Elrod. So I definitely think we're going to get Elrod at some point.
Bring it on.
We have our Bobby Lashley Gauntlet match coming up next, and his first opponent is Chad Gable. And these two, I thought, had a really good match here. Of course, Lashley with a bit of an amateur wrestling background himself. He actually best Gable on the ground, slapping him at one point before doing the shush himself. Lashley rams Gable hard into the post on the outside. He gives him this long delayed vertical, but a spear from Lashley is countered by Gable's ankle lock, and Gable holds onto this ankle lock for a very long time, following up with a big moonsault for a 2 count. We see a really nice set of transitions that ends with Lashley putting him into the hurt lock for the quick tap out here. What do you think of this first portion of the Gauntlet match?
I thought the first portion was very, very good, and surely to God, they have to start giving something to Chad Gable. He's been so like this sort of goofy ass gimmick he's had going. He's gotten it over as a heel, and he is very entertaining. He's always been great in the ring. You know, just start to the program that they did with RKO, I thought worked very RK Bro worked very well. And yeah, just build on that. I think you've got a very good heel tag team between them, and just start giving him some wins because
I'm
it's starting to feel a little off now.
maybe as a baby, like an underdog baby face, there might be a bit of a future, but I personally think it's a little too late for that. Like
Mm,
if we saw Kurt Angle in a similar territory after being a comedy figure for so long that when it was time to treat him seriously, the audience had a bit of difficulty accepting it. I definitely feel like we're way past that point with Chad Gable, you
yeah,
know, between Shorty G
yeah,
and
it's
all of this
possible.
stuff. But I mean, that's not to say that he's not in a good spot. He's on TV. You know, he gets to
Hmm.
speak every single week. He's got this you know catchphrase over. So
Hmm.
he will have a job. But as far as like title aspirations, I kind of feel like we're behind or we're beyond
Yeah.
that.
It could be. I think that this is the first time since he's been there on the main roster that he's had a well-defined character, because the Shorty G thing was nothing but a name and a basketball jersey.
Oh my God, forgot the jersey. Otis is the second opponent, of course. He immediately attacks Lashley after the pin, dominates him all over the floor, and Lashley at this point still has a bad ankle, of course. This was a really weird part where the referee starts counting Lashley on the outside. Otis steps back into the ring. The referee gets all the way up to an 8 count. And for whatever reason, Otis decides to go back outside to break the count as we go to commercial break. So the announcers had a
Mhm.
heck of a time trying to explain that one. My thinking is that the segment, of course, was supposed to go to commercial break and was somehow supposed to end with Lashley on the floor. I don't know if somebody mistimed something and Otis decided to go back out. I don't know, but there seemed to be some sort of breakdown in this little
Mhm.
portion.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So the crowd is really getting to Lashley as an underdog throughout all this when we return. He has trouble putting on the hurt lock on Otis because of his size, but he does manage to catch him with a spear. As he's about to pin Otis, in comes Gable to attack him for the disqualification. And I guess gives you the idea that they, you know, they don't want both members of Alpha Academy losing to this guy in one shot. They did
Mhm.
protect Otis here. Uh,
It's yeah.
what do you think of this
Gable's supposed
portion?
to be the smart one. This did not work as well for me. Like you said, there were some timing issues, and just I thought that it was good that they had him unable to put the hurt lock on Otis. That he had to come up with a different way to defeat him. I don't know why they didn't just let him defeat him. Uh, like Gable jumping in at the last minute was like I'm not sure like what this was accomplishing, but as you just said, it's like I guess they didn't want both.
A matter of pride, I suppose, you know, like he
Mhm,
saw his friend was about to get beaten, so he took it away from Lashley.
mhm.
Yeah.
But this
Uh,
was made weirder by what happened immediately afterwards when the third competitor came out.
so the third competitor is Theory himself. Gable and Otis both attack Lashley before Theory arrives. So Lashley is already half dead as Theory starts to beat on him. Theory sets up for his finish, the A-Town down, but Lashley, I thought, beautifully countered into a little cradle
Mhm,
and
mhm.
pinned Theory. So
Yep,
Lashley gets his U.S. title match at Money in the Bank, and the crowd was really up for all of this. They built
yep,
really well for this climax here at the end. What do you think, Kate?
yep. I thought it was like what I said there. It was weird because like Theory was sort of high fiving and like uh, getting excited about both members of Alpha Academy, like they were his friends or whatever. It's like your guys just let you down. They
Well,
lost,
did they
and they
though?
lost in a really stupid way the second time. Like they were supposed to be your lines of defense. You shouldn't have to come out here.
I'm
I
guessing,
get how they attacked him afterwards, but
yeah, I'm guessing Theory like picked these two knowing that Lashley was probably going to beat them, and maybe he was just looking to tire Lashley out, and that's what the high fives were for.
right.
He
So
tired him
about
out.
that, why would you put yourself in third? It's I guess it's because you're cocky and you think it'll be easy to beat him, but why even risk it? why risk something like what happened, which was a quick turnaround into a cradle? And that finish was, to me, almost the best part of the entire match. I thought it was well executed. It looked very like you could look at it and go, oh yeah, see how he did that? Like that's good thinking on his part. But it just made Theory look so stupid. And in general, the way the character has been presented, he doesn't need the help there. And Vince doesn't love him for his brains. I think my favorite part about this whole sequence, both earlier and this match, was that we didn't have to get another Theory and Vince segment. That made me so happy.
Yeah, I don't think those are happening anymore from the way that, it seems like Vince McMahon is portrayed these days. I feel like all of that has been dropped. I mean,
Mhm.
we wonder if there was anything to like Theory versus Cena that would have involved Vince. But I don't see that happening. And you know what? They haven't necessarily like shown Theory with Vince in quite a while, like since Mania at
No,
least.
this is Mania.
So
Yeah.
so he's kind of
But
at
with
least
them both
graduated.
there, the opportunity was was there.
Hey,
Like,
I mean, with
sorry.
Vince name dropping Cena, I suppose it does open the door for,
Mhm.
more interaction between the three of them. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, I actually quite enjoyed this, Kate. I thought they were very successful here at stacking the odds against Lashley and really getting the crowd behind him as this underdog. This comes after, I had my doubts, certainly last week with the pose down. I thought that was quite awful. But this week, I think was some solid underdog professional wrestling
Mhm.
building here. And otherwise, I felt like, all the booking was strong. I thought Gable did really well. So he went close to 20 minutes here in total, Lashley.
Yeah, yeah. I find that Lashley's style works better in shorter matches, and gauntlet matches are something the WWE normally does very well. This one overstayed its welcome a bit for me. Particularly, I think you had a very hot bout off the top. It sort of like settled. It came down after that. Um,
But the crowd
Again,
vote.
like I'm not saying it was bad. The crowd got very into it, and yeah, Lashley makes an unlikely but an appreciated baby face
That
next
they
to
sorely need.
Theory. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And again, I go back to me, he's the one you build for next for Roman, but in lieu
Yeah.
of that, this is a program.
Mhm. All right. So Belair is in the back. She's interviewed about Carmella, and Carmella super kicks her from behind. So just a bit of a quick build now for that match coming up in how long are we away from Money in the Bank? Let me see here. Money in the Bank is only
Next
next
weekend?
week. Jeez, wow.
Yeah.
So very quick turnaround. So they'll have to do quite the segment next week, but I'm guessing
Mhm.
this will just be essentially an exhibition for Bianca Belair. The
Mhm.
Miz is with AJ Styles for Miz TV. Miz recaps AJ's recent slump, which includes, I suppose, losing Finn Balor to Judgment Day, losing to Seth Rollins, having his former partner Omos qualifying for Money in the Bank. And then AJ says, even though this University of Nebraska crowd may be young, they're not naive because this is Cornhusker country. Uh, their demos will suggest otherwise, but whether or not they were young live, I don't exactly know. AJ says these Nebraskans, anyway, since they're speaking about corn, Miz must feel like a failure knowing that his wife married somebody with popcorn balls. And so the Miz freaks out. He says he, in fact, has python-sized balls. He says he beat John Cena at WrestleMania. He has the perfect family. They reinvented reality TV with Miz and Mrs. AJ admits that he is going through adversity at this point in his career, even though his team won at Hell in a Cell. But he says adversity is how he became phenomenal. He says he doesn't like to use his own words to solve his problems. He likes to attack people blindsided. Did I get that right? Did Judgment Day
Yeah.
lose? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm not
Um,
crazy.
yeah. No. No, they
No,
didn't.
they won.
Edge won. Edge got the pin, which is why it was so incredibly weird that they kicked him of all people out.
You're correct. I stand corrected. So AJ is going through certainly adversity then. He says he doesn't like to use his words to solve his problems and he decks Miz. So anyway, out comes Mrs. Lackey, Champa, to the rescue. He attacks AJ from behind and we get a match. in another lifetime, Kate, this would be a bit of a dream match here between
Oh
Tommaso
yeah.
Ciampa and AJ Styles. Here it is a setup match for a Miz program. Ciampa is in control, some very good looking offense. AJ takes control, hits the Ushi-Goroshi, brief back and forth, phenomenal forearm for the win. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just tragic that this doesn't feel like a much bigger deal, and that Ciampa is the stepping stone, which is all he's been since he was introduced to the main roster. I mean, he's been the stepping stone to get to the Miz, or for Mustafa Ali to get to Theory. Um, I I don't know what they're doing with them, and the one thing that strikes me is that they're not letting him talk, and his character work was integral to the strong run that he had in NXT. And so if you're not giving him a character, if you're not letting him speak, then he's a very good wrestler, but you're just removing a crucial part of his appeal. And yeah, the idea that they could be doing AJ Styles versus Tommaso Ciampa as a throwaway on Raw just makes me sad.
I think we all knew that it was going to be a bit of an uphill battle for Tommaso Ciampa making it on the main roster. I think a saving grace is that, he looks tough, he looks mean,
Mhm.
and that they're not saddling him with a comedy gimmick like I think they would have if he was that size and looked friendlier,
Butch.
looked like Drew Gulak, or looked like Butch. Ciampa still coming across as at least a serious competitor, even if he does
Mhm.
lose quite often. Um, these are, I think, still very much his tryouts. He
Mhm.
puts in full effort every time he's out there.
Mhm.
And I think it's his way of proving to the people in the back that he is able to do more. Whether or
Yeah.
not the people in the back see more for him is a very different question.
Yeah.
Which makes it all the more amazing that somebody like an AJ Styles is as highly regarded by Vince as he is.
Mhm.
Not that different in size here,
No.
and
No.
AJ is booked to be world champion, right? So
Mhm. I
yeah.
think he may have come along at just the right point. Like, he came along to me when, like, Triple H was most in Vince's ear, and I think probably pointed out to him, this guy's huge. He's been a big deal for basically every all of the other biggest promotions, and it just came together very well for him. I don't know if AJ Styles came over now that he would have the run that he had after he arrived, like 2016, I guess, right through to like 2018.
It's just so amazing that it's not like he chooses to maybe respect somebody's reputation coming from New Japan
Mhm.
versus his own promotion in NXT, you know?
Well, yeah, but I mean, he doesn't even particularly have, like, I think very early on he had that. Obviously, there's different issues at play, but very early on he had that respect for Nakamura, but that fell away quickly. He early on had that respect for Asuka, that fell away quickly. Uh, I
But they're still
don't
booked
know
well,
that this is,
or Asuka is at least booked at the top, I should say. Yeah,
yeah, booked at the top. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say booked well.
right. Veer Mahan, sorry, did we finish that segment? So yeah, Miz attacks him.
Hmm.
What is it? AJ hits a Pele, and then AJ hits the Miz with the Styles Clash. So AJ versus the Miz at some point here.
Hmm.
Veer Mahan is interviewed on the ramp. He says what he did with the Mysterios is only the beginning. He loves Carnage, and nobody knows how to stop him. Says something in his native tongue, and then says, "Fear Veer." So we get to hear Veer's voice a little bit. Promo didn't exactly say a whole lot here, but how do you
Hmm.
think he sounded, Kate?
Something that strikes me about Veer is that if you look at his social media, he actually comes off as pretty charming, and I'm wondering if they shouldn't just let him let him be that. Uh, One thing that struck me was, like, when they had the Gauntlet match, like, I guess I know why they didn't do it, which is they don't want to have him lose, but logically Veer was the one to go in that third slot. Like, have
Hmm.
your monster come out, and I think that there, if you were going to do the disqualification, it would be in that third segment so that you kind of protect him. but yeah, like he's the monster who's in there now, and I understand why you don't want to have him lose, but that logically was the option to go with. I
I would say
didn't
not
think he
just
came off.
want him to lose, but they probably don't want him to even look weak at this moment.
Yeah, I get, yeah, and I get that. Like I understand why they did it the way they did, but just if you put yourself in Theory's position there, why is he not your go-to man at the end? And I guess I'm not supposed to be applying logic here. I thought I thought he did. It was a kind of a vacuous promo, but it was fine. He did okay. Again, though, to me, he didn't come off as kind of a monster in this one. So he came off as maybe he did, like, just the tone of voice didn't sound like the sort of monster tone of voice that you would
Mm.
expect, and this is why I think long term he might be better booked almost as a baby face.
We shall see. I mean, if you watch, I haven't seen that Disney documentary apparently, but I mean that was all the face build you need
Mhm.
for that, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, we have our Money in the Bank qualifying match in our main event here between Asuka and Becky Lynch. Becky immediately attacks Asuka on the ramp, and we get a really frantic pace for the next 15 minutes as they return to the ring. Asuka's going for her finishing armbar very quickly. They keep up the pace throughout the entire match, especially with Asuka's barrage of attacks. We see, spinning chops, spinning kicks, hip attacks. Becky locks in an Asuka lock of her own, but Asuka transfers that into an ankle lock, maintaining it as she rolls with Becky's counters. Asuka applies a half Asuka lock on the ropes, hits a big missile dropkick for 2. Becky then runs off the apron with an attack, but eats a big counter knee from Asuka, both of them barely beating the 10 count at this point. The finish comes as Becky goes for the disarmor, but Asuka counters with the schoolboy, putting her in perfect position for a big head kick from Asuka. Asuka wins. So we have I thought, another excellent match involving these
Mhm,
two. They wrestled
mhm.
this entire one like it was sudden death, had a great pace for the entire 15 minutes,
Yeah,
and two very solid matches involving Asuka and Becky
yeah,
on one show.
yeah. Absolutely, I think that they have really good chemistry, and I don't want to see them overdo this. I think that Asuka needed the win here when she became the top contender to the women's title by beating Becky with the mist, so not quite clean. She lost clean to Becky, which is how Becky got into the three-way, and then she was the one who took the pin in that match at Hell in a Cell. So I feel like Asuka was definitely in danger of losing some of her allure. I know the crowd loves her always, but I think she was teetering on the edge of feeling like she wasn't quite at the top tier anymore. Uh, I still, to me, that three-way at Hell in a Cell still feels like a wasted opportunity because I think you get much more mileage given that the build is clearly to Becky versus Bianca at SummerSlam. I think you would have gotten more mileage out of having Asuka do a program with Becky, which is what they teased originally, and then going to Asuka versus Bianca, like sort of pace it out a little more. The fact that they made it into a three-way seems to have thrown it off for me. But yeah, this was a really good match, and again, but yeah, it reminded me that I would have rather have seen the two of them be the starting point for Asuka on her return. And the one thing that occurred to me was when they were both about to be counted out, why not just like let it happen? We already have precedent that a double DQ gets both of you into a match. Like, why bother? Like, roll those dice.
I mean, I guess they hate each other enough that
Hmm.
that they didn't want to see the other make it, I suppose. But we have our updated roster for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Thus far, it is Lacey Evans, Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Asuka, and either Aaliyah or Shotzi, as well as 2 other opponents to be determined. So that's who's in so far. Anybody stick out to you?
Um, it might be early, but I'd say Alexa to become the first woman to repeat. Um, I think that like
Carmella
there's
has
clearly.
has won 2, hasn't she?
Did she win two? I know she won the first one. I didn't remember if she won two. At any rate, I think Alexa is a definite possibility because again, we haven't gotten that. She and Bianca have never faced each other. I and like
Oh, just one.
post,
She's
I
won. She's only won one. I apologize. Yes.
Okay. Um, I think that that's an interesting match that you can go to. Um, I know there is a history with WWE. The last show before Money in the Bank, that they do a multi-person match with everyone who's lost the qualifiers to determine like the last position, which I actually like. I think that that's a good way of sorting out the final position. I think they'll probably do that next week, and I'll be curious to see who of the others makes it. I suspect for the women, it would obviously be Becky. But
Your thoughts overall on Raw?
it was an episode. I thought, I thought it had some good points. The thing about Raw is it just feels so damn long, and that's what occurred. Like, this is the thing that occurred to me watching it. Like, talking about it, obviously there was a fair amount that I liked, but it drags. Like, it's so spaced out. You've got so many recaps, and so, like, some of the segments are overly long, and some of them just seem so unnecessary that clearly, the criticism, everyone has made this, making it for what, 10 years. It's a slog, and that is always going to work against it for me.
At this point, I think like John and I have like have become so technical with how we watch Raw that like, or maybe we've just gotten so used to it that it doesn't bother at least me all the time anymore.
Hmm.
Like, I'm
Hmm.
doing stuff in between like the commercial breaks. I'm like, I'm waiting so that I don't watch the commercial breaks, and I can just like
Hmm.
speed through them
Hmm.
afterwards. But yeah, for somebody, what was it like for you, like taking notes and watching it?
It made me very conscious of the time, because a lot when I'm watching Raw, as I said, I have it on in the background. I'm doing other things. I'll be like, I'll be chatting with other people who are watching it, like, just to sort of, make comments, be catty. Um, I felt it a lot more this time. Like, this, having to sort of fix on this and take in the details, it made it that much more apparent how empty a lot of the show is. And at this point, a couple of years ago, I was saying, there's no excuse for that with all of the people they have available to them and all of the writers they have working. They should be able to come up with a lot. The roster's a lot thinner now. So now I think you've gotten to the point where it's very difficult to justify the 3 hours, even if you're using everyone.
We have a little bit of breaking news here, and this comes to us courtesy from Mike Johnson, a PW insider, who has let us know that WWE issued a memo to talent this evening following Raw, announcing that Bruce Pritchard is the interim head of talent relations going forward. They also informed talents that pending the conclusion of the board of directors' internal investigation, John Laurinaitis has been placed on administrative leave. So there's the update on John Laurinaitis for the time being, who has not
Mhm.
been on the road since the investigation began. Um, Probably talk a bit more about this on the update tomorrow. But first, a couple pieces of feedback to this edition of Raw. First, we got Alexander from Portland's brother, Austin from Portland. Tonight's Raw felt mostly like a leftover show. Leftover Lashley Theory pose down from last week, leftover Street Profits Usos match from last week. Even the announced Becky Oscar match was leftovers from the opening five-way. That said, what was fresh on this show really connected. Styles and Ciampa put on a good TV match. Riddle continues to be one of the best baby faces in the WWE, even in a loss. And the Elias segment was quite fun. McMahon's appearance was incredibly forgettable, except for one part. McMahon mentioned tonight was episode 1517 of Monday Night Raw, meaning that more than a third of all Raw episodes have been 3 hours. Wow, what a stat. Highlight of the night was Veer. It seems like he has so much of what WWE is looking for. Size, power, look, and his mic skills aren't bad. I hope there's something in store for him for SummerSlam. He deserves it. P.S. Always nice to hear from Kate. I agree. I think it's way
Thank you.
too soon, honestly, to like determine whether or not like Veer has it. But yeah, on the outset, size, power, and look, I suppose he has it. Sure.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Um, would I'm assuming you have the thread put up there, Kate, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
How
I've
would
got
you like to give a shot at reading our next piece
Brandon?
of feedback. Yes.
Okay, here I go. Hey, long time no talk. Hope all is well. If you don't know who I am or why I'm here, then you lost the plot. We know. It's me. It's B from NJ. I know self-indulgent on my end, no doubt, but I'm just keeping it a buck. Anywho, Raw, both men and women worked hard tonight. Great effort by the squads. My question: did Vince die years ago, and that who walked into the ring was really an NFT of Vince? Meanderings. Wai and Kate, have you caught up on this season's The Boys? It's been absolutely tremendous. Karen Fukuhara, probably my favorite actress in the show. Should Richard Holiday be on TV? Great performer on MLW. I'm out of here. Peace.
I can't
I
speak
didn't
so
do
much.
that justice.
No, you did great. You did as good as I think anybody could ask for. I do not watch MLW on a regular basis, so I'm not familiar with Richard Holiday. Are you, Kate?
Funny you should mention. I saw Richard. I'm not from. I don't follow MLW on a regular basis. Richard Holiday as a wrestler, I've seen a few times on Dark. I did catch him. He had a match on a show for Prestige on the weekend, and before that he had cut a promo. I was really impressed. Like, the guy, for someone who is not getting really regular TV experience, obviously MLW is like it's between worlds, but for a guy who has not gotten exposure on national TV, it did strike me like he feels like he could make that transition very easily. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with him. And yeah, very good in the ring. So this was the
I
right day to ask me.
have been catching up with The Boys. It has been fantastic. I think what they hit on this season with Homelander essentially like publicly playing up how much of an asshole he is, and having that resonate with a section of the audience is so like such sharp commentary about so much of what happens today, including what exactly is going on right now with Vince McMahon. Basically not apologizing for anything, and therefore inspiring a certain section of the demographic that thinks, wow, what a badass. He's just taking all of this and owning it. So I think it's a great show. And I have one episode to catch up with. Is it something you watch, Kate?
It isn't. It's something that it's one of those things that I'm aware of, and keep thinking like I should get around to this, but I feel like I'm so far behind on TV. I've right now just been trying to catch up on everything from Better Call Saul because I let that lapse, and I'm finally up to season 6, so I have to finish the first half of that, and obviously I'm going to try to do that before it comes back. That's my TV adventure right now.
In between the wrestling, of course, that she watches
Mhm.
and often rants about, and where can people find some of those rants?
You can find me at She Rants About Wrestling, which is at She Rants MTL, and I am on Twitter. I think I had an epic achievement on the weekend. I actually managed to live tweet 4 shows kind of simultaneously as best that I could. I don't know if I'm going to be that active again for a while, but it was an experience. And yeah, I do follow quite a bit of it.
She's a great follow on Twitter at SheRantsMTL. As I mentioned, John Pollock will be back with me in the Post Wrestling Cafe for all patrons on Ask Away. It is a show that we've already recorded, and you can find that probably at 5 o'clock. So for your drives home on the Eastern time zone, look for that in the Post Wrestling Cafe feed. I will be back for the daily news update. I've already used up Kate's credits for tonight. I was set to have her on 1 o'clock. So as of yet, I have to find another partner, but I hope to hear from you very soon, Kate, as I'm sure we will.
I hope to be back, and thank you as always for having me.
All right, everybody. I will catch you guys later.